All right, let's get right into it. If you're an entrepreneur or even just thinking about starting something, you know the journey is loaded with these really seductive shortcuts. They seem like the smart move at the time, but they can actually steer your startup right off a cliff. So today, we're going to break down the most common traps and, more importantly, how you can sidestep them. I mean, this is the classic problem, right? It's where almost everyone starts. You've got this incredible idea, you've got the skills, you've got the drive, but your bank account is, well, basically empty. So what's the first thing pretty much every founder in that spot does? Your gut screams at you to just get some cash in the door, any cash, from anywhere. You've just got to survive. And look, it feels so practical, it feels absolutely necessary. But as we're about to see, that pure survival instinct can lock you into a cycle that makes it impossible to ever build a real, valuable business. And that brings us to the first and maybe the most tempting pitfall of all, the outsourcing trap. See, you think you're getting paid for your tech skills or your services, but what you're really selling is the one thing you can never, ever get back: your time. This is where the road splits. Think about it. When you build and sell a product, you are creating an asset. It's something that can be sold again and again, and its value can grow over time. But selling your time, that's a one-and-done transaction. You trade hours for dollars. And when that project ends, you are right back at square one with absolutely nothing to show for it. I mean, just let that sink in. There is no compound interest on time you've already spent. It's just gone. And that brutal, simple fact is exactly why the outsourcing model becomes this treadmill that you just can't seem to get off of. And as if that weren't bad enough, you're also playing this psychological game with clients that is completely rigged against you from the very beginning. It's all about how they perceive your value, and that perception, it's almost always warped. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let's say you're an absolute rock star. You pour your heart and soul into a project, you work weekends, you deliver something truly exceptional, a solid 120% effort. You're expecting the client to be just blown away, right? Well, in their mind, that heroic effort of yours is probably perceived as maybe 80% of what they expected for their money. And if you deliver anything less than your absolute best, oh, that's seen as a total disaster. It's a game you literally cannot win. You're constantly over-delivering just to be seen as barely adequate. And the damage just keeps piling up. This model creates this insane boom and bust cycle for your cash flow. Your employees, they get totally disconnected, jumping from one random client project to another with no real sense of mission. So turnover is crazy high. You basically just become a training ground for other companies' future engineers, while your own company stays hollow, never building any real assets of its own. Okay, so let's shift gears to the second big trap. This one is a huge siren song for founders who come from a technical background. It's this idea of falling in love with your own internal process, believing that if you can just perfect your system, that can somehow replace actual business knowledge. So a lot of companies use methods like Agile. And listen, in theory, it's great. It's designed to be flexible and fast, all about quick feedback loops and responding to what you learn. It's a huge improvement over the old, rigid ways of doing things. But here is the trap. If you don't have constant, direct, real input from the actual market, Agile just turns into this internal game. Your team starts arguing about story points and playing planning poker instead of talking to customers. You get incredibly efficient at building things that nobody actually wants to buy. It's been described as a greenhouse experiment, and that is the perfect analogy. Inside your company, everything is neat, tidy, and controlled, but it is completely sealed off from the harsh, unpredictable weather of the real world, the market. And that kind of insulated thinking leads us directly into our third major pitfall, the data blind spot. We live in this age of growth hacking, and it is so easy to get hypnotized by our dashboards and metrics, thinking they have all the answers. But they are missing the most important piece of the puzzle. And here's the thing you absolutely have to understand. Your analytics can tell you what is happening. It's fantastic for showing you where users are dropping off your site or which button they're clicking. But it can never, ever, ever tell you why. It can't explain the human emotion, the frustration, the confusion, or the joy that's driving those numbers. And there's a really human reason this trap is so common, especially in companies led by engineers. It's because founders and their teams often prefer the safety and the certainty of just looking at a clean dashboard with predictable charts and numbers.
Because having a real, messy, sometimes awkward and uncomfortable conversation with a user who is frustrated with your product, well, that's hard. It's unpredictable. But hiding behind the numbers and building in a bubble isn't just a shortcut, it's completely irresponsible.
So we've walked through all of these pitfalls, the outsourcing trap, the process illusion, the data blind spot. What's the alternative then? How do we actually build something that's going to last? What does real value even look like? First, let's just do a quick reality check on the money. There's an old rule of thumb in the startup world that really puts things into perspective. When you factor in the insane risk, the stress, and all the lost opportunities, if your startup isn't bringing in at least 3 times what you used to make at your old, stable job, you are, for all practical purposes, losing money. This isn't just about survival, it's about creating substantial value. So, what is the foundation for that value? Well, it really boils down to 3 core commitments. First, you have to obsess over solving the right problem, not just being efficient. Second, you have to get out from behind your screen and actually live your user's experience to understand their world. And finally, number 3, every single thing you do has to be focused on building lasting value, a real asset, not just a service that vanishes the second you get paid. And that really just leaves us with one final big question you have to ask yourself. When you step back and look at what you're doing every single day, are you truly building a scalable business that can grow beyond you? Or have you accidentally just created a much more stressful, high-risk, and complicated job for yourself? The answer to that question, it changes everything.